Well, we stayed and worked the rest of the week. We worked the whole week, Dad and I did. Well, then when it come time for us to go on, well, he had a job up there working with Uncle Abe's thrashing machine, and he thought it was about time for him to go on to get there in time to go out with that machine. So him and I, at the end of the week, while the folks had already gone on, and him and I stayed there and worked at that machine. The end of the week come, why, he quit and drawed what money he had coming, and we got things all rigged up there one morning and got ready to get started out. The old tires was loose on the rig and liable to come off at any time, you know. We had to watch them and wire them on and put them on with shingles and one thing and another. So, in those days, you could get a loaf of bread for 5 cents. Well, at the end of the time, why, we got ready to go. Why, he gave me 10 cents, and he says, you go down to the store there and get a loaf of bread. Well, I went down to the store, and I got a loaf of bread, but I cut it down. I got a nickel's worth of bread. Well, he never said a word. I got a nickel's loaf. And I bought me 5 cents worth of Battle Axe chewing tobacco. Because I had been chewing a little bit when we was on the way up there. Why, Ray had chewed a little sometime, and he gave me 10 cents, and he says, we come to a store, and he says, you go in there and tell them that you want 10 cents worth of whole handle chewing tobacco. Well, I took it. I didn't know anything about it, you know. I'd never chewed any tobacco, didn't know anything about it. So I took the 10 cents, and I went in, and I told the man, I said, my brother sent me in here for 10 cents worth of whole handle chewing tobacco. Whole handle chewing tobacco? I said, I never heard of that. I don't know what it is. I don't have it. Well, I got some other kind of chewing tobacco and took it out. It's all right with Ray. So I took a chew of that tobacco, and I got pretty sick of it, all right. No question about that. But he gave me half of that tobacco. I stuck it in my pocket at that time. Well, then when Dad and I went to go on, Ray had gone on the train. And when Dad and I had started to go on, well, I had that chewing tobacco in my pants pocket, and I'd learned to kind of chew it a little bit, nip on it, you know. Well, we started out, and we had to go up quite a long hill. When we got to the bottom of the hill, why, he says, no, I'm going to walk up that hill, makes it easier on the ponies, and he says, you set up in there on the driver's side and drive them, and when they stop and rest, well, you put the brake on, and I'll put a block behind the wheel. So I thought to myself, right now is a good time to take a chew of tobacco while Dad's gone. So I got that plug out, and I took a chew of tobacco, and we started to go on up the hill, you know. I sat up in there and chewed and spit big as life and twice as natural. And so when we got up at the top of the hill, I began to kind of get worried. I thought, now I'm going to have to get rid of that chewing tobacco, or he's going to get in here and ride, and what'll I do? I'll have to spit. I can't swallow that stuff. It'll kill me. So I spit the stuff out when he wasn't looking. I kind of kept one eye cocked back toward him. I spit it out. I made it all right, got up on top of the hill, and he got back into the old rig, and we started on. Well, down at the foot of that hill, we had this ford of river. It's quite a wide river. I don't remember what the name of it was, but it was quite a wide river, and quite a few rocks and little rocks and things in it. So we got across on the other side of the river, and Dad had some shingles that he'd picked up someplace along the line. You know, he's quite a guy to pick up stuff like that. And he'd picked up some shingles to drive in between the tire and the felly on the wheel. So we got across the river and kind of soaked up the thing a little bit and got it a little tighter, and he drove in a bunch of them shingles in there and broke the ends of them off and put the rest of them in the old hack. He got in, and we started on. Well, there was 2 roads there. The roads forked. One of them turned, went up the river, and the other went right straight away from the river. And he thought the one that went away from the river was the one that he was supposed to take to get to Garfield, because it was out away from any river there, and it was a farming country and lots of grain. Inland Empire was what it was called. So he kept going. He said, I believe that we're on the wrong road. He said, I think we're going to have to go back down there at that river and take that other road and follow that river up. Well, I said, okay, if that's what you think, well, let's go ahead and get at it. So we started back, and we drove for quite a long ways, and it was getting quite late. Well, it was 10 o'clock that night. when we finally did find a place that we could get off of the road, because the road wasn't good. They were just a cow trail, is what they were in those days. And that was a kind of a rough country by being along that river. So we went right up the river, but still away from the river a little ways. And we found a place to pull out of the road. And Dad, he pulled out of the road there, and he unhitched the old team, and he tied old Pod. We called him Pod. He was a sorrel, white-eyed, one white-eyed, white-faced horse. And we tied him up to a picket line and turned old Dooney loose. And we rushed around, got us a little bite to eat. And we got the bed made down in the bed. We got everything out to the top of the bed, and got the bed all fixed up. And we laid down in the bed there, and we had a pretty good night's sleep in that bed. Well, it was late, and we was both awful tired, and we just pulled our shoes off and got in bed with our shoes and things, with our clothes and things on, without the shoes. So the next morning, when it got daylight, well, we looked down, kind of down in the canyon a ways, and there was a farmhouse down there. And he told me, he said, now, I'll roll up that bed and get things all ready. I'll go while you're getting the fire built and getting stuff for breakfast. I'll go down there and see if I can buy a dozen eggs. So I went ahead there getting breakfast and fixing up breakfast. We had a little bit of a table there we eat on, this folding table. And I done that, and I fried a little meat and stuff and got everything ready. When he come, I fried the eggs, got the eggs all fried. We sat down and had breakfast. And after breakfast, we rolled everything all up and got the beddings rolled up and everything in apple pie order. And we got in the old hack and we started on. And we got up quite a little ways from where we'd camped. And I seen Dad stick his hand in his pocket, and he pulled out a plug of chewing tobacco, and he took a chew off of it, and it was the one that I had bought back at Starbucks. And he never said a word, and I never said a word, but he took a chew off of it and sat there and spit. And of course, there's no side curtains on the old rig that was down there where he rolled them up. They had them all rolled up. There were side curtains on it, but had a pole on them to roll up. It was like a window blind. And he had them all rolled up so there'd be cooler in there. So he took out that plug of tobacco, and he took a chew, and he never offered me one, but I never said a word, or he never. And we started on, and we finally got up there at Starbury, out there at Garfield, all right. And we stayed there in Garfield, and we got there, I believe it was on the 1st day of August, if I remember right, and on the 7th, why, it was when they was going out with the thrasher machine. And instead of us going out with Abe, Chris, why, they sent us out in the Steptoe country with Dan. That was Abe's brother. He was running one of Abe's machines, and they had made arrangements with the farmers out in there to come out in there and thrash grain. So when the 7th come, the day of the 7th, why, we all went out there, and Ray went along with us, because he had got there on the train, you see, and he went out with us. Well, I went out to stack straw. They had one of them wind blowers, stacked straw stacks on stacker on the machine, and I was supposed to be the straw stacker. So I went out, and for a few days I stacked straw, and Ray was driving the bundle team. Well, Ray, he got sick, and he had the typhoid fever. So they took him back in, and Mother Mackey and Jean, they stayed there in Uncle Abe and Aunt Belle's house there in Garfield. So they took Ray in there. Well, when Ray left, well, that left him short-handed. So Dan, he wanted to know then if I thought I could handle them bundles. And I said, well, I can give it a try if you're short-handed. And he said, I'd be glad if you would. So I took the team and went to hauling some bundles, hauled bundles, done the best I could. I'd like to work my head off. And as time went on, his cook quit. Cook and the flunky both. Each machine had a cook and had a flunky. And some of them had 2 cooks and a flunky. But Abe just had 1 cook and 1 flunky. And he didn't know what in the world he was going to do. So he went over out for advice for Dad, and he put a lot of dependence in Dad that way. So he he went out and was talking with him about what to do, and Dad says, well, Orville's there. He says he's had a little experience in cooking, and it might be such a thing if you'd furnish him a helper there, somebody that's pretty good to help and willing to work, that he might be able to get along until you can find another cook. So he come and asked me about it, and I told him, yeah, sure, I'd do the best I could. And, of course, the flunky had to furnish wood and see that there was plenty of water, and put up a tent to sleep in. And he had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and build a fire in the cook stove in the cookhouse. And he had to help me then prepare the breakfast and wash the dishes and get the meals. He had to help me do everything there was to do, rustle wood, go all water. And everything went along pretty good that way. And one day, a few days, I don't remember, I guess about a week or so, Dan went into town himself, and when he come back, why, he brought a cook and a helper back with him, a woman and a young woman, 2 women. And so they put them back in there, and that set me free, you see. I didn't have any more cooking to do. So I went back then to driving the extra team. Now, there was nobody that drove that team at all. They was tied up to the bundle wagon all that time when Ray was sick. Well, then after they got a cook back, well, then I got the job of driving that bundle team. Well, I got $2.50 a day when I was driving the bundle team. Of course, my folks got it. I didn't get it. And I was supposed to get $1 a day for stacking straw. Folks got that. Well, then after they got that woman and that younger woman, why, they made it pretty good that way, and they put me back to driving that bundle team. Well, that made it that much easier on the bundle teams, you know, to have another team on and get more grain in without working so hard. And I went on, and I stayed there with them then until they got the thrashing all done, and we went back into Garfield, and we stayed there in Abe's house for a while. And Dad looked around, and he found an empty house there in Garfield, and with what little stuff we could dig up and what Dad could get after we got up there, why, we went over into this house that was down close to the railroad track. It wasn't much of a house, and had an upstairs, and had just one big room upstairs. I think it had about 2 or 3 rooms downstairs. And Dad, he went out in the country there. He began to get acquainted with a few of them fellows around, and you know how they get to talking about what's going on and so on. And he heard of a chance to get a job of pulling and topping beets about 3 or 4 or 5 miles, something like that, from Garfield out in the country. So he took that job. It's for $5 an acre to pull and top beets, $5 an acre. Well, all of us that was able to go, we went out there and went to work of pulling and topping beets. And we got that job done with. And then Dad thought he would go up toward the mountains. It wasn't too far from the mountains there, I guess around 14, 15 miles, 16, something like that. And he went up there and he got a job from a man. There was a man that lived down at Yellow Dog. And he had a big farm. He was a farmer. And then he had this timber farm. And it was on up above Corey, a little town they called Corey. And this town was just all there was there was just a store and a little post office, and they had a few goods and things like that. So Dad, he got a job of cutting wood up there that winter on the shares for half of it. And there was a house that there on the property that some of the homesteaders had built, and a little old barn. Dad kept the ponies in the barn there until he got a job from Uncle Abe Crisp of making some rollers out of small fir trees. And he made those rollers and took them in. And in the meantime, my dad had bought another team of horses before he left Corey. And he bought them on the installment plan. And he had 4 head of horses then. Then the little guys, they were too slow. He couldn't keep them in front, so he put the bigger ones in front and the little ones behind. Made a funny-looking outfit, but that's the way he got along with them. And he got this job from Uncle Abe of getting these rollers, and Uncle Abe got a job of moving houses in Garfield that winter with his big steam engine. He had a 25-horsepower engine, compound engine. And he moved a lot of houses. He'd lay plank down on the ground, jack the houses up, and lay plank on the ground, And then he put these rollers on these planks and let the house down onto it, and he moved along with that steam engine. So he moved along that way, and then in the spring, after we got spring come and the roads got good and things got better, well, now during that winter, we did cut a lot of 16-inch wood. Now there was us 3 boys and Wildy. There was 4 of us there to cut wood. And Wildy was my age, he just a little bit older than I was, and Wayne was a year and a half younger. So it was my stepsister and stepbrother. Well, Dad, he would go into Garfield and he would sell some of that dry wood. It was dead, cut out of dead yellow pine trees, right big ones. And he'd help us cut the trees down, and then us 4 kids would cut it up and split it, and Dad would haul it in. Well, then after he'd haul a half a cord load to them ponies, and then after he got the big team there to haul with, why, he'd haul a cord at a load. And so we stayed there at that place, and I remember he got a lot of rutabagas from some of them farmers around there, and he made a big hill. They called him a hill. He heeled them in. He'd dig out a scoop out a little place, and he'd pour them down the ground with straw in them, put straw in them, and then straw on top, and then he'd put them dirt on top of that to keep it from freezing. That's cold weather there at that time, awful cold. We didn't have money enough to buy any good shoes or boots or anything to wear, so we'd wrap our feet up in gunny sacks and tie them with strings around our feet. And we got along pretty good there, and then he finally got another place over above Freeze. We went over there and stayed over there. Lived there until we went over, crossed on the other side of the Palouse River, over where I got married. Now that's about the size of it. Got some more here for me. Oh yes, by the way, I am 90 years old today, June the 8th, the 1976. My name is Charles Orville Mackey. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Orville's wife. I'm Margaret Mackey. And the 31st day of October, we've been married 70 years. And I still like him. We've got, we had 7 boys and 1 girl. But 2 of our boys have gone. So we've got 5 boys and 1 girl left. And Lester, our second boy, and his wife are here visiting with us. And they come up yesterday. I hope they don't go back for a while. But they always go back too quick. And we get lonesome for them.
How old are you, Mom?
Well, I'm 86 years old.
87.
Oh, I'm 86.
No, 87 last
Well, I was born in 1889.
No, 87.
Dad says I'm 87. So we let him have his way.
Odd. She born in the odd.
My birthday's on November the 19th. I don't know. I'm not much of a talker. So I can't remember to tell things like he can. But he's been a good old husband to me for all these years.
What was your maiden name and where did you live?
Well, my maiden name was Margaret Jane Cox. We lived in Idaho. I was Potlatch, but Potlatch wasn't there when I was born. It was building Potlatch up the year we got married. We got married in 1906 at Blue City. Yeah. Well, yes, in Washington. And I guess that's about all I know to say.
Wait.
This is Margaret again. I made a mistake a while ago. I said Lester was here. It's Lewis and Grace instead of Lester and Jerry.
I'd like to add a little bit more to what I said. This is Charlie Mackey, the youngest boy of the Mackey ranch. One little thing that I forgot to say or mention about, my two older brothers, when they left home, they had ponies to ride. One of them had a saddle of his own, and the other one didn't have any saddle, but he rode a borrowed saddle away. Well, they never did find them, so they never got the saddle back again. And they had to go over the Cascade Mountains, and they got up on the Cascade Mountains, and they had a toll gate up there that they had put in, so that they had to pay toll to keep up the road that went over the mountain. Well, the boys never had any money when they got there, so they were afraid that their folks would catch them, so they laid out in the brush. They went out and took their horses and went out in the brush, and they got away from this toll gate quite a little ways. And after it got dark that night, why, they took their horses, got on their horses, and went on up around the end of the toll gate. You see, this toll gate, when they put that in, they built a fence on either side of it, a certain way, certain distance away from it. And the boys, they took their horses and went around the end because they didn't have money enough to pay the toll. So that's the way they got around the toll gate. Now, this is all again, I guess that's all.